and it's the Table Breakers. They've done it again. Is this the biggest panel we've ever had on, Jason?
One day you'll have a guy throwing mid-70s, and next week you have a guy throwing 55-mile fastballs.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Ballcaps Bagpipes, a Scottish baseball podcast. I'm your host, John McKellar of the Glasgow Comets.
And I'm Jason Durr, former league president and Baseball Scotland Hall of Famer.
Former league pervert?
No, I think someone else has that title. League president. Let's go with that.
And we're joined by a very special guest tonight, umpire from Glasgow. You umpire the Triple A games over in Glasgow. Bill Sheldrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It's wonderful to have you on. I've been hoping to get you on for I don't know how many times I've asked you actually over the past couple of years. So it's great to finally get this to get this done. What a couple of weeks we've had in Scottish baseball, Jason. We've had some pretty insane scores going on in Triple A in particular recently. Single A almost seems to be the inverse of that, and it looks like Single A has been the more competitive games in the last couple of weeks. What say we get right in about the scores and then the standings to get started off with this week? We've got the last 2 game weeks, so that's week 5 and week 6, and we'll start with week 5 in Triple A. The Breakers beat the Oilers by a final score of 24-15 in week 5. The Cannons defeated the Devils 18-6 to continue their hot start. The Galaxy and Comets game in Glasgow on week 5 was postponed due to the weather. In week 5, it was just the 1A game that was supposed to happen, and it was the Glasgow Derby, which of course was also postponed due to the inclement weather conditions there at the field. So some massive score lines there, a couple of rugby scores, Jason, in Triple A right off the bat.
I think it's early days. I think the weather's played a lot to it there. I think when we actually get a couple of dry weekends, I think you see the scores come down there. But I think we're just getting the ball's probably a little bit wet, and I think with that things should be much easier there. But yeah, high scoring for AAA. Didn't see that coming yet. I thought we'd definitely have some lower, some kind of 5-3 kind of games.
Yeah, and it stayed pretty much the same in week 6. Yesterday's games, it was Cannons 8, Breakers 2, which was the closest game of the lot, really, in terms of like a low-scoring game. The Comets defeated the Devils by a final score of 13-6 out in Edinburgh, and the Galaxy horsed the Oilers by a final score of 22-6. So again, a couple massive scorelines, in particular that Galaxy result over the Oilers, 22-6. Just kind of weird how that's kind of happened in the last couple of weeks, given that Triple A has consistently been the tighter, the closer games. Whereas if you look at the week 6 Single A score, just the one game there, the Tayport Breakers beat the Knights by 6 runs to 4. So a really close game, a tight game in Single A, but again, just massive score lines across the board in Triple A.
Yeah, that's good. Like I said, I think we're going to see some competitive games out of Single A this year. So I'd like to see the scores that are low and it's not a blowout. And you're taking the guys that are new to the game or just played it for a few years now, and it's become quite competitive. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. For the first time this season, let's have a wee quick look at the standings. In Triple A, after 5 games, the Cannons have a perfect 5-0 record and they sit in first place. They're looking very strong in their early push to retain that league title in Triple A. The Breakers are behind them at a 4-1 record in second place. In third place at the moment, the Galaxy, they're at 2-1. The 500 Glasgow Comets are 2-2 and they're in fourth place. In fifth place, the Oilers, they're 0-4, and the Devils are at the bottom at the moment with an 0-5 record. So that's the AAA standings. We'll take a quick look at Single A as well. The Glasgow Comets are off to a perfect 3-0 start. They're first place. The second place Breakers are 1-1. The Knights are 1-2. Kind of sputtering start for the Knights. I was kind of expecting better from them up to this point, but they're not getting blown out. So, I think once they settle into their groove, obviously the Knights, as we've documented, lost quite a few talents to the Triple A Devils this year. I think once they settle into their groove, they'll be a force, and I don't think the Knights have too much to worry about. But the Galaxy, they're in fourth place. They're 0-2 at the moment in Single A. So that's the standings so far. Cannons, you must be happy to see the Cannons running riot at the top of the league here, Jason. 5-0, and they've blown pretty much everyone away.
It's the start of the season. They're off to a good start. Not going to complain about that. So nice to see their continued run of success. But I don't think they're going to sit in the laurels and say we're going to just run with the league. You never know what can happen here. Like I said, I think a lot of teams are just warming up. The weather hasn't been that great, so I think when we hit June, I think we're going to see a lot more competitive games.
I would agree. I think that's probably the likeliest scenario. Do you want to move on before we chat with Bill then to the Gabriel Rincones recap?
We'll cover it after Bill, and we'll do it as a closing bit.
Okay, let's move on to the interview section.
As I've heard a couple of these blowouts, what I've noticed, the best game I've actually umpired this year was the Cannons and the Comets, and that was 4-0. And that was incredibly tight, right, all the way through. But yesterday's game against the Galaxy and the Oilers, well, it was the Oilers couldn't pitch. They don't have a starting pitcher really, and that showed. And the other week, the Comets, I can't remember what it was called, whichever team blew out the Devils on a mercy row again. It was just one team could pitch and one team couldn't.
I think it was the Galaxy actually. I think beat the Devils a couple of weeks back. It was a 21-1 final score, I think.
Yeah. It was again. It was pitching. The Devils couldn't pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been spoken about quite a lot the last couple of years, and especially when we split the sides into Triple A and Single A, the importance of pitching. And we look at the Glasgow Galaxy for a few years there when they won 3 consecutive titles. That kind of dynasty, if you want to call it that, was built on pitching. It was built off Luke's back because Luke was such a tremendous pitcher. It was so difficult to get hits off him. He didn't really walk a lot of people because he had such great command. And when people did get hits off him, it was difficult to string enough hits against him to get anyone home against him. So it was really tough to play against him when he was on his game. And that essentially was what won the Galaxy 3 straight league titles. We've seen it with the Devils last 2 seasons ago, and then the Cannons last year as well. If you've got a really, really strong starting pitcher that you can rely on to pitch 5 or 6 innings, you're going to win more often than you're going to lose in this league. I think when the Comets win, it's usually off the back of having a healthy David, or recently Luis has pitched a lot, and he's done a fantastic job on the mound as well. So yeah, pitching super important, and I think that there has been a bit of a kind of an unbalance in terms of the pitching prowess for the teams this year in Triple A that we haven't seen for a couple of years. So it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on.
Yes, I think I said we were talking before the show about this, and we'll let you actually introduce Bill here. That pitching dominates there, so whoever has the most dominant pitcher usually is the team that's the strongest every year.
That's definitely the case in this league. Good pitching is going to get you a long way. But yeah, let's move on to our interview section. I'm very excited about this. I've been hoping to get Bill on for a while. Bill Sheldrick, welcome to the show again. First off, why don't you introduce yourself and who you are, and sort of give us a bit of background on how your relationship with baseball started?
Well, my name is Bill Sheldrick. I live in Glasgow. I have lived in Glasgow since 1987. I came to Britain in 75. I grew up playing baseball in Canada. I played Little League, Pony, and I stopped playing around about the age of 16 when I was too old for Pony. And not long after that, what I was doing in Canada, and then I traveled to Europe and lived here. And I didn't, other than watch the odd bit of sports on strange news broadcasts or something, didn't see baseball, or whatever, just followed it. And until the end of the 90s, when somebody in Glasgow tried to resurrect a Glasgow baseball team. There had been a Scottish league before. Edinburgh won it. They had the team, the Ravers, or the Reavers, depending on how you want to say this. The Glasgow team was called the Finchley Braves. There was a team in Dundee, which the Edinburgh umpire Wolfie was involved in. But some of the people that were involved in the Glasgow team tried to resurrect a team and we started practicing. We didn't do anything that first. I think it was 1999, and then in 2000 we got other players and we started practicing with the aim to play games properly. And we joined the British Northern League, which meant Sundays were, as Jason and I were just talking about, you could have, our first game was Birmingham away, where we played on an ash pitch and people ripped their legs up sliding. Right? It was like the most inappropriate material to play in baseball on an infield I'd ever played in. But it was like you would leave in the dark in the morning and you'd play 2 games and then you'd come home in the dark, right? And we Birmingham for 1 year and then they disappeared. Liverpool, Manchester, Sheffield, Hull, Menwith Hill. Bolton came into the league for a while. So every other Sunday we were away all day and night, it seems, and people were getting back at 1 o'clock in the morning or later to go to work. And Glasgow actually got to being a very good team. We went to the national finals in 2005. Our league position, we finished second behind Liverpool. Our league position was based partly on the fact that we had a very dominant American pitcher, but he didn't play the last few games of the year. And it was the youngsters that got us through. We beat Menwith Hill at the Lanark County Racecourse Ground. This is where we were playing. And we got through with having beat them. And Menwith Hill was always a powerhouse in the league because they're the U.S. Air Force, right? It was the best ground to play on because they had all the facilities.
Yeah,
right? You just had to get through the base, through the armed guards and that, right?
So to give you some idea of what Bill's talking about, if you didn't bring your passport to get into Menwith Hill, you were not allowed onto the grounds.
Even more than you had to give your passport in 2 weeks before a copy of it before, so they would vet you.
Yep.
And I'll give you a story. And we actually had one player, a Cuban, who was not allowed to come. They said he would not be allowed on the base. Right?
Yeah, because of the embargo. So I guess this would be.
Yeah, that was it. They said no, you can't have Cubans come on the.
Yeah.
So we would be vetted by American security, and last year, 2 years ago, my son started working for Babcock at Faz Lane, right? The nuclear sub base just up the road. And as part of that, he said, I've been offered the job, but I need to be vetted. I said, all right, okay. He goes, and you need to be vetted as well. And I said, you don't have to worry about me. He goes, what? And I go, I've been vetted by American security. I'm clear. I said, I've been on Menwith Hill, the place that doesn't exist. Right, where they've got the AWACS with the engines turning over the whole time that you're on the field playing in case they need to take off.
Yeah.
So that was the league, but eventually the travel got to the point where our baseball team just said, as we'd gotten older together and gotten better, it was also, but now we're having relationships and kids and commitments, and I can't take out a whole weekend to play baseball, and it basically fell apart. So we died as a team, and most of the team went to play softball because you could go to a softball game in an evening in Glasgow, travel for 20 minutes to get to the field, play a game, and you'd be home after 3 hours, not on that. So and a number of that old Glasgow team are still playing softball in Glasgow and in London. So that's where we went. So the team that I was involved with, first as a player, then as a player manager, and then as a manager, stopped. And with that, I sort of disappeared for a couple of years. And then one of the ex-players who played for then started playing for the Comets, Gio,
Yeah.
he asked me if I'd like to come an umpire.
Mhm.
So I had done the umpiring course for the British Baseball League when we were still part of it. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll umpire. It's a Sunday afternoon commitment. So I've been doing it, more than a decade now. I'm putting my body on the line.
Definitely. And I've seen you take quite a few foul balls off the chest and the neck.
Oh God, yes, right.
Yeah.
So people keep inviting me back, so I must not be too bad, right? Right, at doing it. So, of my playing days, I think there's one person still playing, and he plays for the Cannons. Right, he was a youngster when we started.
Would that be Rudy?
No, I don't think not Rudy. No, I can't remember his name. I gotta see him. No,
Rory's been around the longest now. Rory Dunn's been around the longest. He's taken over as the longest tenured player that I know of.
Right.
Cannons, who else would be? Unless somebody came back that I don't know of.
I don't think he was there when the Cannons came to town last week or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. But he was there last year, right? But he was a youngster. He was like 16 way back in those days. Now a lot older.
What age would Rudy have been when he started, Jason?
19, 20, 21, around that age.
Right.
So that's what I'm thinking. That's it. If there's any Cannons watching, give us a shout. Let us know. What do you think? Who it is? Who's been around that long?
Well, I wanted to go a wee bit further back again here towards kind of your early days playing the game. You mentioned that you played Little League and Pony League back in Canada. What positions did you play growing up, and why did you stop at that stage?
What? Why did I stop?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, both Little League and Pony are age related, right? And like all kids coming into with no talent into playing baseball, I started playing the outfield, right?
Right.
You stick the kid that can't catch, that's the youngest, out in the furthest, out in right field, and hopefully nobody will hit it to him, right? I eventually moved to playing second base as I learned to catch, right? So when I started playing in Glasgow at the end of the 90s, my hope was to play second base, but I was a lot older and slower, and there was faster, younger people to play second base. So I played first base.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a bad position at all. I play first base myself mostly nowadays.
But I'm not thin or anything. I'm not. So that's where I ended up playing. Sometimes the outfield, depending on especially when we acquired a couple of other players, I played in the outfield. And then I just graduated. At a certain point, it was like, oh, you're it. You're not going to manage us, right? That was. I'm not going to talk about the politics of the game, but there was a palace revolution in the Glasgow baseball team that saw one manager ousted and then another person took over. And then it was like he didn't really want to do it. So it was like, well, you're it, right? You got to do it. So it fell to me for a few years. And
did you embrace management, Bill? Was that something that you had wanted to do, or was it something that you saw more as a burden?
The answer was every baseball club needs one. You need somebody to organize things. Organize, and in our case, organize practices, because we practiced in one school field. We never had a home ground. One of the great things about that the Comets and the Galaxy have going for them is they have the full cross field, right? When we were playing, that was a kids' baseball ground, and they would not let us as an adult team anywhere near it, right? So we were constant, our home field moved at least every 2 years, if not yearly, and sometimes even during the year we moved, because we get ousted by kids wanting to play baseball in the field that we had made, right? So we ended up at the Lanark Race Course, and then to have the annual horse racing show destroy the field we built, right, by driving their wagons and caravans and Winnebagos all over it, and that making great ruts in our field. So we had we could not get a home field in Glasgow, despite constant meetings with the councils. We tried to move to West. I tried to get us a field in West Dunbartonshire, and their view was, no, we don't have any fields in the summer. There's nothing on they're resting in the summer. From the end of April, beginning of May to August, we rest our fields. And I said, you mean so nobody can play organized sports in the summer here? Oh no, we want lots of sports, but you can't have our fields, right? It's like, because you're only supporting football. No, we don't. That's not the case. But you have to play your season during October to April, right? It's a little bit difficult playing in our climate to play baseball in the rain and the wind and the snow. Well, actually, sounds like Glasgow summer, right?
It was actually, yeah.
But
is there anything that you can think of, Bill, that Scottish baseball could do in terms of communicating better with councils and local authorities as to sort of what playing baseball in this country actually entails?
Well, I think if you could persuade a couple of councils to be supportive of the idea, one field, one multi-use field at one side, a bit like a lot of happens in North America, is out of one corner you've got an adult field with a man, the other side you've got a softball field or a kids field for Little League. That would go a long way to helping develop it. I'm not expecting every community to have a baseball field, but the councils to allow one field to be developed to some extent would be great. We found a field in Glasgow that had been gone into disuse, negotiated with the council for a year. They agreed to it, and then they put it to the Parks and Recreation Committee, and then we met the local council said, no, we don't want them playing sports in that park. Right? So, they'll interfere with the dog walkers. Right? So the dog walkers have more votes than wayward youth playing baseball. Right? So,
our core audience at Tollcross is probably dog walkers. They love this stuff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but for some reason they allowed the field they put the backstop in. The council built that backstop. That, God, that was we used to have to erect the backstop to play the game every week. So, once they put that in, that was, a godsend for helping develop and establish Tollcross. So I can say to people now, go up to Tollcross Field on Sundays and you'll probably find them playing baseball there. It's somewhere that's a focal point for people. You can tell that, you can tell that to anybody that's out there that you meet. I'm sitting on a train the other week and I thought, oh no, I'm wearing this hat. Wearing the Comets hat. And they go, who are the Comets? I said, it's Glasgow baseball team. They play Glasgow baseball in Glasgow. So, it's not wildly known, but it does, right? Does the Herald still report the results? Because we used to have our results written up in the Herald every week, because we managed to get a sports journalist who would just say, "Oh, give me 2 or 3 lines about every game that way, and I'll publish it." So it was only a wee couple of lines, but there was a note there in the paper that's recognized that there was a baseball team playing. I don't even know that happens. I don't even know if people read newspapers these days.
I don't think they do that anymore. Jason, do you ever have contact with any media outlets like the Herald or anything like that?
We did, yeah. We used to get write-ups when the first couple of years I was here. So going 2003, 2004, 2005, you would get these write-ups there. Bill Lothian was the guy that was in charge of stuff over for the Edinburgh Evening News there. And I had many conversations with him about trying to promote the sport. And they stopped probably 2006. They said people are more interested in under 11 football than they are baseball. And we won't be putting anything more in there. And went, okay, that was it. But yeah,
there was
what's that?
The Sunday Glasgow paper, one of them, did a special edition once on baseball in Scotland, right?
Yep.
In the supplement, with on the front page, the cover of it, and that was a picture of a baseball player. It was focused on the Falcons out in Paisley, but it was a major advance on the publicity in terms of that you would normally have.
Yep.
Right?
They interviewed Doogie Robertson and him playing baseball and then being playing in a Bruce Springsteen cover band. And it was kind of his history there. Yeah, and it was a big cover there.
I think I still have the supplement in a box file here. I don't throw things out.
Yeah, I've got that one as well too. Nick Clark saved a bunch of stuff from back in the day, so he saved a lot of stuff from kind of mid to late 90s and early 2000s, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking to the journalists and kind of give them a bit of a write up on what happened and how the games should go. But yeah, it fell by the wayside, and under 11 football was more important than baseball.
The fact that the Comets and the Galaxy have a home field, and yesterday there must have been 20 people watching the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's been quite impressive just the last couple of years, probably since the pandemic lockdowns all ended. It does feel like there's not like a massive crowd, but there definitely does seem to be more of an interest when people are passing by in the game. They're like, "Oh, is this a baseball game that we've got on?" And I remember a couple of weeks ago when I was playing in single A game, like I noticed there was like an older couple sitting by a tree and like we deck chairs watching the game, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no. I went and talked to somebody who was just standing there watching to find out there's a new Glasgow baseball team that Andy Sweeney's helping to coach on the south side. They're hoping to get. At the moment, it's not even to the quality of the A League. So they're hoping that over a year or two they'll join the A League.
Yeah, they're looking to get some friendly games in. I'll actually touch on one of them at the end of the show because they do have a big friendly coming up in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's quite excellent to see the growth of baseball just in Glasgow, let alone Scotland, to see that extra new team, and especially considering that they are kind of more focused on LGBT people and looking to make that a safe space for LGBTQIA plus. I think I've gotten that right. I hope I've gotten that right. I don't like to mess that up, but yeah, it's a great thing to have in Scottish baseball, and hopefully they will be able to join the league in a year or two. I've got a couple of quick comments here before we move on. Jason Stott, my coach on the comments, is claiming that he has the longest tenure playing baseball in the league, so that may be in dispute.
No, I believe Jason does have the long, but when we were talking about we were talking about cannons, I was definitely Rory the one there. But yeah, I think Jason's got the longest tenure by a good few years.
Yeah, he's celebrating 25 years now, and he's only 30. I've got a couple of questions here from people. I've got a couple of viewers' questions here for you, Bill. Which MLB team do you support and why?
I do support the New York Yankees. Probably because when I was growing up in the end of the 50s and the 60s, Mickey Mantle played for them, and Roger Maris, and Yogi Berra and Whitey Ford. Joe, right. So, and given that we didn't get much MLB coverage in those days, what little bit was probably the World Series, and therefore the Yankees are in the World Series most years. So I remember crying my heart out when Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale beat us by the Dodgers. I remember being upset when the Pittsburgh Pirates beat us on the walk-off. I remember the Cardinals and Bob Gibson destroying us in the World Series when Ken Boyer beat his brother Clete Boyer for it, and then so that's it. But I have to say, before lockdown, so as of 2019, I had visited every major league ballpark.
Oh wow!
Yes, 2019 saw me complete the trip where I basically finished where I started, which was with Yankee State, the new Yankee Stadium, and the new Citi Field, because the first two fields I visited were the old Yankee Stadium and the old Shea Stadium. I went to see the Yankees play and landed at LaGuardia, and as I come off the airplane, I wasn't going to the game until the next night, and I was in the taxi going to the hotel, and he had Mets coverage in Queens, and I said, "How far is it to Shea?" And he goes, "A mile." He had to drop me off at the hotel and take me to the ballpark. My plan to go see my first MLB game, which was the Yankees and the Toronto Blue Jays. I ended up going to see the Mets play the Florida Marlins, which was Pedro Martinez versus Dontrelle Willis on the mound.
Oh wow!
Oh well,
right. And that that was my first MLB, and it started from there. That we then went the next year. We went to Canada, and then after going to see Toronto for a few years because we were Canadians, we decided, well, rather than just always go back to Toronto, we will then start going to different cities every year. So from 2010 onwards until 2019, minus with the 1 year when the volcano blew out the trip, right? That's what I met my brother in somewhere in in the U.S. because we'd done the Canadian field, and we went, and then we worked our way around. So we ended up finishing at where we started back in New York. Well, he finished in Boston. He'd never been to Fenway, but I snuck Fenway in once when visiting there on the holiday. And I've visited Cooperstown. I visited the Negro Leagues Museum in KC. And I've been to the Museum of Ballparks, which is in Colorado, just around the corner from the Rockies field. Right,
So we had a couple of Yankee fans from New York on when we did the Negro League fundraiser, Jason. So I'm going to ask Bill the same question that I always ask them. Did you prefer the old Yankee Stadium, or do you prefer the new, more modern Yankee Stadium?
And let's say, thank God you didn't pull a Dwayne Kuiper there. I'd have to fire you, John. You wouldn't be around any longer.
Well, I probably prefer the new Yankee Stadium because I was pretty much visited the old Yankee Stadium at the end of its life, so it was pretty run down. Really, you could see why they were rebuilding. But it was still a lot better than a couple of ballparks I can name. Right? It's not my Yankee Stadium is not my favorite stadium in all the ones that I've visited. Right?
So Jason Stott actually wants to know, Bill, what's your favorite Major League Stadium?
Favorite stadium?
See, that's that loaded question here because it said you could have a stadium, but I'm actually curious to add on to this one your favorite city you went to because it said
right. Well, just my favorites. I would put Camden Yards and Petco Field as maybe my two favorite city fields because they were just outrageously family orientated and friendly and that, right? Um, and that easy to walk around, good, right downtown in both cases, in the heart of the city. And that, so, at the end of the game, you walked out and you were still in the city, I do like Target Field because it has the best drink they serve. It's a pint of vodka, Bloody Mary with sticks of celery and huge sausages and jam. It's their signature drink. And I can tell you, when you're sitting there at the beginning of April and it was not far above freezing, right, for opening day, that drink really worked really well at keeping you warm. Right? But probably my favorite city is San Francisco. Right? I do like Seattle as well. I did like Seattle when we were there. Had a great time in Seattle to go see when we went to see the Mariners.
Because I had a friend who was a season ticket holder for the Giants, and then they would travel to see the Giants. And he said, you get to see all the stadiums; they all have their different quirks. You like some of them better than others. But he said of all the cities he visited, he said Denver was his favorite.
Denver was okay, but I for one of the games at San Francisco, because of where I was in the morning, I took the cable car around from Pier 49 right to almost the front of the entrance. So you can't do that everywhere. It's a cable car, right? Just jump on, and that. So old-fashioned transport to get to the ground. And so that I do like that. And that. But Seattle was good because of all the things to go see when we were there. The first Starbucks, and that.
So for those who don't know, the first Starbucks is at Pike's Place Market. So you go down there, and that's where it's located there. So
yes, right beside it. Yeah, and I love that. I love that open air market, and I certainly spent a bit of time in the bars in it.
Did you go and try the Pike Place kilt lifter? That's always a popular one.
I don't think so.
The what?
It's called the kilt lifter. I can't even remember what it was. I used to drink it back when I was in Seattle, but it was called the kilt lifter. I'll look it up.
Okay. Well, we're going to close things up shortly. Bill, I just want to quickly round things off by asking, do you have any favourite moments or memories from your time being involved with Scottish baseball, either as a player, a coach, or an umpire?
I think one memory that I like is the fact that when we got to the national finals, we were the first team to field a female playing in the national finals. Right?
That's a great start.
18-year-old. Mm-hmm. Right? She come on as a substitute in both games that we played down there. But I was, we weren't exclusive, shall we say? We tried to encourage everybody that wanted to play. Right? Good. We let Gio play. Right? And if he's listening. Right?
One day, yeah.
Right? No, that was, that was, but I just like playing baseball. I like playing baseball. I like watching baseball, right? And that I like telling Americans when I'm in ballpark scoring a game because they go, "You score? Where are you from?" And they go, I live in Scotland. And they go, "Do they even know what baseball is? And you can do this?" Right? So I have scorebooks of all the games I've been to. Once I bought a scorebook to keep score. Right? And that. So just the general vibe. It's a good way to spend if the weather's fine, it's a good way to spend an afternoon. Right? whether, I'm beyond playing. So nowadays I umpire. I'm getting close to where I think I might have to give that up. So, right? I don't like being hit by the ball anymore. Right? In fact, Thomas was coming and mentoring me the other day as an umpire, and he goes, "You keep, you move your head when the ball's coming at you." Go like, "Oh, I'm shell shocked after all these years." I keep my head still, right? My nerves are going a little bit.
Is there another facet of the game that you would like to get involved with, Bill, after you give up umpiring? Would you manage again? Is that something that might be on the cards?
I talked to Jason once about he was talking about running kids in a park not far from me. And I would think about doing that. But right now he seems to do it on the mornings of the Sunday mornings, and that just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I'm also season ticket holder at Old Trafford, so that sort of blows out part of the weekend as well. I mean, a lot of the
time. Well, Lawrence Cameron wants you to start. He wants you to be the starting pitcher for Glasgow in 2024. So, some tells me you probably won't be up for that.
No, I gave up playing softball when I had to have my shoulder rebuilt. So I was never a good pitcher anyway, and but it got to the point where I couldn't even move my arm, and they completely rebuilt my shoulder. I sort of describe it as they used a needle and thread to sew the tendons back in, a Black & Decker to sand off the bone chips, and super glue to stick it all back to my shoulder plate, right? And that took 9 months of recovery afterwards before I could even start thinking of throwing a ball. I went back and played one softball game just to say, that's it, I've now retired. So pitching is out, right?
All right, man.
But helping coach kids, helping to encourage kids and things like that. Look, I'm sure a lot of the younger players, not only on the Galaxy and the Comets, but on some of the other teams, will tell you. I talked to them after the game to try and improve their batting technique because they're just so bad at batting. They're standing strong, the way they move, they swing, and that. And even Ali the other week, I took him aside and said, you're never going to hit the ball the way you lean, and if you do, it's just going to be a pop up to second base. That's just the way you swing.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, that's definitely something that's, I think, noteworthy with you, Bill. Is and you've done it with me before as well. If you see like an area where there could be some improvement, you're always quite quick to offer advice and stuff like that, and you never do it in a pushy sort of way, which I think is always really well received.
It's one of the things that, I've played the game, I've managed the game, but when I'm umpiring, I'm watching what's going on in front of me. So there's an element, especially the batting technique, because I'm sitting there watching people, right, having no chance of hitting the ball at times because of the way they stand, the way they swing, right, and so it's like, whether they heed my advice or what, that's up for them. But I'm just trying to help them improve a bit. And that's all you can ever do is you try and help people improve a little bit and that move and get better.
Well, Bill, I certainly hope that you're going to stick around the game for a long time to come, even beyond your days as an umpire. Hopefully, you'll get involved with coaching in some capacity and keep growing the game in Glasgow. That's all from me. For you, Bill. Jason, do you have anything else you want to close up with Bill?
Yeah, I got one question for Bill. I'm curious, who is the best player you ever played with or coached?
Brad Jones.
Brad Jones. Yep. Okay, I can see that.
The best player that ever played out of Glasgow was Brad Jones. He was hands in his ability with as a pitcher, right, was phenomenal. He also could hit and field and that. So he was probably the best player. The best Scottish player was probably Neil Sylvester, right? And he came to the game yesterday, and him leaving baseball, I thought was a travesty for Scottish baseball. Losing him to softball, but I can understand why he did. Right? He was just multi-talented as a shortstop.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, those are two solid choices. I remember playing against both of them.
You weren't bad as well, Jason, right?
Yeah, Brad was very tough to bat against, and did not like pitching to him.
Yeah.
And Neil had the speed and was amazing with the glove. So yeah, he'd always make contact off you and just beat things out constantly.
No, he was a great contactor,
Yep.
and unfortunately, we used to put him as catcher one year, and he hated it, right? But he did that as well for the benefit of the team. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to hear those names come out. Those are names I've not heard in a long time. So.
I don't think I ever played with either of those guys. Probably the best Scottish player I ever played alongside would have been Xander.
Right. Yeah.
Coach Jason Stott, I'm very sorry.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You're going to get a punch in the shoulder next time you get seen.
I think Stott would probably agree. I think Xander was a tremendous talent. I think certainly before he had these injury issues, I think I played with him for just a couple of years before he started to really feel it, but he was outstanding to watch play. And his antics on the field were absolutely hilarious. I think what sort of skews it for me as well probably is the fact that Xander was on my side, whereas Jason Stott for much of that period was with the Galaxy. I'm just trying to wriggle out of that, but yeah, I saw more of Xander.
I would have to say both Jason and Xander have suffered from injuries, and if there's anything that probably Glasgow baseball should think about is what to do, help players recover from some of their niggles and that. With the health service being what it is, I don't know if there's any chance of that. But there's an element of some of people's arms problems and shoulder problems are not helped because we don't have anybody looking after them. They go on, play. We push them to play more and more, keep playing because we need you. And then it gets to the point where it's a debilitating injury rather than something that should have been rested for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Food for thought, definitely food for thought. Thank you so very much for joining us on the show this week, Bill. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I will see you at the field within the next couple of weeks, I'm sure.
Yes. There's no game this weekend at Glasgow. Following weekend, I think somebody's playing that. So,
All right. Let's move on to the schedule for this week, Jason. This week, week 7, we have the Devils at the Breakers in Tayport. The Galaxy are going out to Edinburgh. They face the Cannons, the red-hot Glasgow Edinburgh Cannons, and the Glasgow Comets are up in Aberdeen to face the Oilers. So yeah, no game in Glasgow, which is kind of unusual actually. That we don't have a single game in Glasgow. I don't remember the last time that would have happened. In Single A, it's just the Knights and Breakers, so they're going to run it back following that excellent game that they had in Single A this past week when it was 6-4 Breakers. So we'll see if the Knights can even up that season series right there. So that's the schedule for this week. We're pretty much all but done. Jason, do you want to quickly do the recap for Gabriel Rincones then? He's had a pretty massive couple of weeks.
So yes, he started off cold, picked it up, and got red hot at the end of April there, and he was the Phillies minor league hitter of the month. So that's through all the system there. That's not just the Single A club. That is all the way through Double A, Triple A, and the rookie ball there. Finished April with a 268 batting average at 930 OPS. He had 6 doubles, 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, and 13 stolen bases in 20 games there. So well done to that. And he also won Florida State League Player of the Week of the 24th to the 30th. So whatever injuries he had that kept him from playing last year seems to be gone. I don't imagine him stick around in high A. I imagine going to Double A pretty soon there. He's shown he can pretty much handle everything that's thrown his way at the moment.
That's excellent news, man. We obviously congratulate Gabe on that accomplishment and basically hope that he keeps that up over the course of the season. And like you say, sky could be the limit for him if he keeps progressing the way he has already.
Absolutely. So we're all rooting for him there. Double A's is next up for them, and if you can handle them, they said the one thing is he's a bit older than most guys that are in the high A ball at the moment, which is fair enough. He is there, but he's showing he can handle his own. They either bat him in the 3-foot spot or the 4 spot, and the fact he already has so many stolen bases for somebody with 30 grade speed is clearly the scouts got it wrong.
Like I said in the last episode, he's due a nice bump in his speed stat when the next MLB The Show patch comes out, I think. Wee quick announcement regarding the 20th of May. So Saturday the 20th of May, the Glasgow Sunflowers team is going to be playing a friendly against a team coming up from Leicester, the Leicester Diamonds. Andy Sweeney has asked me to go ahead and stream that game and commentate on it, and so I will be doing that. That's going to be streamed on the Baseball Scotland Facebook page. So I do hope that you guys will join me for that. That should be an interesting experience to see those guys, those two teams in action. It's two teams that I don't really know a whole lot about. Obviously, the Leicester Diamonds coming all this way up, so it's going to be great to see how that shakes out. But yeah. Sunflowers and Diamonds, Saturday, May the 20th. First pitch is at 1 o'clock. So it's 1 o'clock first pitch in that game, and I'll be bringing you the call on the Baseball Scotland Facebook page. You can follow us on social media. It's at Caps and Pipes on Facebook and Twitter. It's Ballcaps and Bagpipes on Instagram. It's just search Ballcaps and Bagpipes on YouTube and Twitch, and you can get Baseball Scotland merchandise as well as Ballcaps and Bagpipes merchandise, which Jason is kindly modelling for us there at baseballscotlandshop.com. So yeah, hit us up at all our links, like and subscribe to the podcast, and there's nothing much else to say but Bobby Bonilla, and let's go Yankees, Bill.
All right, see you guys in 2 weeks.
Right.